All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to In the Paint, Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. I'm Dan Tanner. Live here, we had Nuggets and Timberwolves just end. You can hear the On to the Next One song playing in the background here as the crowd has pretty much emptied out already as the Nuggets get blown out by the Minnesota Timberwolves. 115-95 is the final here at Ball Arena. So lots to get into in this game. As always, feel free to leave me your comments in the comments section, and I'd love to get your thoughts on tonight's game. This was obviously not a result that I think a lot of Nuggets fans, and myself included, were expecting here tonight. The Nuggets are now 0-5 in their last 5 games against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And look, I'm just going to start with this. I've seen a lot of people on X saying that, my goodness, the Nuggets need to avoid the Timberwolves at all costs in the first round. Now, look, I get in a way what people are saying, but to me, that's a loser mentality. When you have Nikola Jokic, you shouldn't be scared of anybody you're playing in the first round, okay? Now, it hurt that the Nuggets didn't have Aaron Gordon tonight. I mean, I will concede that this isn't the best matchup for the Denver Nuggets, and Aaron Gordon being out tonight really hurts this team, especially against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Look, the Minnesota Timberwolves are a massive basketball team, so not having Aaron Gordon in there, I thought really hurt this team. And you can hear the crowd booing as Anthony Edwards just walked off the floor. This place was an odd, weird sort of vibe in here tonight. There was a "Let's Go Wolves" chant just a couple of minutes ago as the Nuggets got blown out. But I don't want to hear this team needs to do everything they can to avoid the Timberwolves. First of all, I mean, I don't even know how you would plan to do that, okay? That seems like it's impossible. But we all think the Nuggets are a championship competing team, right? Like, they're in the mix. Do we all agree with that? I certainly think so, as long as they're healthy and Aaron Gordon is here. I hate that mentality of, hey, we got to avoid this team or that team in the first round. Look, if you need to avoid a team in the first round, you're not a championship contender, okay? So I get it. It's a bad matchup for the Nuggets as far as Minnesota's size goes. I do think Aaron Gordon helps with that. It wasn't like this in the playoffs last year. The Nuggets weren't getting shellacked on their home court. Well, actually, they did get shellacked a couple times on their home court, so I immediately take that back. But the Nuggets showed resilience in that playoff series. So far this regular season, they haven't shown any resilience against this Minnesota Timberwolves team. And let's not forget, this is a bit of a different team this year. Karl Anthony Towns was traded in the offseason to the New York Knicks. Insert Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. So, I mean, technically they got a touch smaller, although Julius Randle and Cat are roughly the same size. But the problem tonight, for me, it wasn't the defense. Actually, to be honest, by the end of the third quarter, I was surprised that this wasn't a 25-point lead for Minnesota. I mean, that's what it looked like. The Nuggets actually had a chance really up until the fourth quarter in tonight's game. They absolutely had a chance. The defense kept them in this thing long enough for the offense to eventually find a rhythm and take over. And they just couldn't get it going on the offensive end. Now, look, the guard play tonight was atrocious from the Denver Nuggets. And it's specifically in the first half of this game, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, and Christian Brown combined for 7 points on 2 of 16 shooting in the first half. Those 3 guys total in the first half had 7 points on 2 of 16 shooting. There were 3 Minnesota Timberwolves players in that first half that outscored that trio individually. So for me in tonight's game, Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic were really the only ones that got things going at all throughout this basketball game. Now, Jamal picked it up a little bit in the second half. I mean, he had 1 point at halftime. He had 11 in the second half, finishes the night with 12. Michael Porter Jr. finishes the night with 10. Christian Brown was basically non-existent in this game. 6 points, 3 of 10 shooting. I mean, all of these guys struggled shooting the basketball tonight. And 7 of 30 from beyond the arc. 23, just over 23%. Minnesota shoots 17 of 40, 42.5%. I thought the Nuggets had a really bad start to this game. They were turning the ball over right off the bat, and they ended that first quarter with 5 turnovers. They only had 5 the rest of the game, but I really thought that set the wrong tone to start the game. They were turning the ball over like crazy to start the game, and they could just never regain that momentum from the start of this game. I mean, Minnesota got out to an 11-2 start. It was 14-4. The Nuggets kept making a pushback, and then turnovers killed them. And just the lack of production on the offensive end, I thought was just absolutely putrid tonight. I mean, it was 34-26 after that first quarter. Nuggets had 5 turnovers. The Wolves had 2. And Jamal and CB were held scoreless in that first quarter. Scoreless. Your starting backcourt was held scoreless in the first quarter. I mean, how many times have I said this year, if Jamal Murray isn't playing at an elite level, this is what happens. This is exactly what happens. And you didn't get really any sort of offensive production from Christian Brown. You got minimal offensive production from Michael Porter Jr. tonight. It was just I haven't seen the Nuggets offense struggle like this in quite a while. And you know, the fourth quarter, Malone pulls the starters with 5 minutes to go. It was cool seeing Hunter Tyson get in there, knock down a couple of threes. If Hunter Tyson doesn't hit 2 threes in the last 5 minutes of this game, the Nuggets only hit 5 threes total in the game. Look, Nikola Jokic cannot do this by himself. He just can't. You've got to have some sort of consistent production from the others that you're paying a lot of money. Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, I'm looking at you. And you know, I'll throw Russell Westbrook in there too. He was pretty good tonight. 8 of 12 from the field, 19 points. But the plus minuses were just god awful. Led by Michael Porter Jr. at minus 31. Joker was a minus 24. Russ minus 22. Jamal minus 19. Christian Brown minus 16. The only pluses in this game were Jalen Pickett, who got in early, 17 minutes tonight. I liked seeing that. And then the end of the bench guys who got in with 5 minutes to go once this game was over. So, look, the Timberwolves do feel like they are the Nuggets' kryptonite. And we've talked about this for several years now on our radio station. I've heard several guys talk about it. Vic's talked about it. D-Max talked about it. Scott Hastings has talked about this more than anybody. When Tim Connolly went to Minnesota, he left being the president of basketball operations for the Denver Nuggets and left for Minnesota. His vision for that team, his basic sole purpose when constructing this roster that the Timberwolves have, was to beat the Denver Nuggets. Now, credit Tim Connolly, because clearly what he's doing is working. I mean, look at the juxtaposition that we saw from a couple of nights ago in Oklahoma City, the best team in the Western Conference, to the 7-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves. It wasn't even close. But again, I get why people are saying, hey, you know, Nuggets really need to try to avoid the Minnesota Timberwolves in the first round. I cannot accept that mentality. If you have that mentality, and I'm not saying that the team does, but fans sure do. Trust me. Go on Twitter. I've seen it a lot. If you have that mentality going into the playoffs, you're already done. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm waiting for D-Mac to post Coach Malone's presser. He's probably talking right now, and I'll be very interested to see what Coach Malone has to say tonight. Look, there was a couple of phantom calls in the first half of this game. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not blaming this game one iota on the referees. I just like to point out when they do dumb stuff. The Jokic screening foul was absolutely ridiculous. He's literally standing in place, and a Timberwolf player runs right into him, and they challenge, and they uphold the call. I was in here in the press box. I wasn't watching on television, so I didn't hear, what the explanation was on TV. Maybe they can provide some more information, but my goodness, like I don't understand what we're doing in today's NBA if that is a foul call. And then they had another poor call in the second quarter, but the Nuggets lost their challenge and they couldn't challenge anymore. So that is the risk you take when you lose a challenge early on in games. That's why I see so many coaches not take that risk specifically early on in games. All right, we've got my guy KJ on here. KJ, I am live here at Ball Arena. Game just ended about 10 minutes ago. Appreciate you jumping on.
Yep, I got you.
Are the Minnesota Timberwolves the Nuggets kryptonite, KJ?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. There's something about the physicality of the Minnesota Timberwolves that it's a psychological thing now for the Denver Nuggets. When they see the Timberwolves coming, they just know, okay, we're not going to be able to shoot. We're not going to be able to drive and kick like we usually do. And it mentally messes with them. You have people who can shooting night coming off a bit. Yeah, sure. You could chalk it up as a bad shooting night if you want to. Whatever you want to do, sir. Look, at the end of the day, the Denver Nuggets, they have is here. It's here. They're struggling here. And the truth of the matter is, I think the Denver Nuggets, Game 7 lives rent-free in their mind.
You think so?
I think so.
You think this goes back to the end of the playoffs for the Nuggets last year?
I do. And don't get me wrong. I know the first game that they played Minnesota in Minnesota, the game was a lot closer and a lot more competitive. Because
I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way. I mean, that's certainly what it looks like to me.
Yeah, and look, but I just think the trend continues over time where it's like the Nuggets, they want to get up for this game. They just can't. They can't, man, because it's just, it messes with them. It messes with them. And when they see Minnesota, it's like, all I can think about is Game 7. And it messes with my mind. It messes with my heart. I'm palpitating. I'm having trouble breathing. It's like, why? Are you not an NBA champion?
Yeah, I mean, so let me put this out there, KJ, and I mentioned this before you came on. So I've seen a lot of people on Twitter already that it just irks me. The Nuggets need to do everything they can to avoid Minnesota in round 1. To me, like, that's a loser mentality.
That is such a loser thought.
I get, like, I kind of get what they're saying. Like, if you want to say that the Timberwolves are a bad matchup and they could really test the Nuggets in the playoffs, that's totally fair. And I would agree with that. But to sit there and say, well, oh man, they really need to do anything they can to avoid the Timberwolves in round 1. Like, if you have that mentality going into the playoffs, you're already done.
You are.
Right? Like, if you're worried about a team in round 1, how the hell are you going to win a championship, right?
Right. Because Boston and Cleveland they are not worried about, I hope I don't run into Orlando in the first round.
Exactly. Exactly. So look, I was just talking about the weird ass call on Joker, the screening foul in the first half where he's literally just standing there and they challenge it. And look, I'm not going to bash Malone for challenging that because to me, everybody here was looking at the Jumbotron like, how is that a foul? Like, what are you talking about? And they uphold the challenge. So it's like, okay. But my point being, that is not why the Nuggets even remotely lost this game. The Nuggets lost this game because Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Christian Brown in the first half, KJ, combined for 7 points on 2 of 16 shooting in the entire first half. Your starting backcourt, Jamal Murray and Christian Brown, didn't score a point in the first quarter. The turnovers were an issue to at least start the game. They did get those under control, but they had 5 turnovers in the first quarter. Minnesota gets out to an 11-2 lead, and the air was just sucked out of the building. So when you're getting that poor of offensive and shooting production from your backcourt, and Michael Porter Jr., supposedly the best shooter on the team, you got no shot. Those guys have to be better. Jokic cannot do this by himself.
He can't. And why are we still having this conversation and we're weeks from the playoffs?
This is a conversation we were having at, this should be a conversation we're having in November and maybe December.
Exactly.
Not on March 12th. Less a month away from the playoffs. That's what's concerning to me.
It's frustrating to me because it's like we keep saying the same things. We're hoping the Nuggets turn it around. Okay, well, Jamal, he looks like he's finally turned that corner, guys, and then he has a game like this. And MPJ, right before the trade deadline, oh my gosh, where has this guy been? And now all of a sudden he's come back down to earth. And Christian Brown, he's Mr. Consistent, so as the game goes along, he'll be just fine. He'll find his footing. But there are just some games like tonight where it's more important, where somebody other than Nikola Jokic has to come along. And no disrespect to Russell Westbrook, but at this point in his career, if he's your second best player on any night,
especially on this team,
man, you're in trouble. You're in huge trouble. So
100%.
The Nuggets, you know how you need to play, and I just don't understand why in games like this, the Nuggets they struggle. So like let's get into some X's and O's for a quick second here, Dan. So I want to credit Chris Dempsey on this breakdown. So whenever Anthony Edwards gets the ball at the top of the key, the number one thing that the Nuggets try to do is they try to show 2 guys. So no matter whether he chooses to roll to the left or to the right off the pick, there's always going to be at least a show of 2 guys. Mm-hmm. The only problem is Nikola isn't fast enough to keep up the rotations of the guards. So the guards are chasing, but all Nikola can do when the ball keeps swinging around is maybe throw his hands up like he does because it's just a lot easier to do that than to run out there and then he gets blown by, And so it's that constant thing defensively where I think they have the right mindset. I just don't think they have the right chemistry in the starting lineup right now. And AG can only cover a multitude of sins to a degree. I just think, man, stylistically, it's just not good for them. And the Nuggets aren't efficient enough offensively to cover up for their defensive mistakes. That's ultimately why, if we're going to get into X's and O's, why this isn't a good matchup for them.
Well, yeah, I agree. And Aaron Gordon, obviously not being in tonight hurts that a lot. I've talked about how I think he's so underrated defensively. I've had arguments with my buddy Alex. He's a Rockets fan, and it was the year they won the title. Actually, I was like, man, Aaron Gordon is dominating these playoffs defensively, and he's like clapping back at me. And I'm like, well, look at the numbers in the playoffs. Overall defensive rating, Aaron Gordon was second of any player in those playoffs. So Aaron Gordon, I don't want to understate that as far as what he does for this team on both ends of the floor, but specifically against Minnesota on the defensive end. I think he's such a Swiss Army knife, such an interchange. Like he can guard any position on the floor. We've seen him guard Steph Curry on the perimeter. We've seen him take on LeBron in the post. Like that's how valuable he is for this team on the defensive end of the floor, not to mention what he does on the offensive end in the dunker spot, how much that opens everything else up. So yes, they are missing Aaron Gordon. And I especially think that hurts the Nuggets when they're going up against the Timberwolves, because the Timberwolves are just massive. I mean, they are. Without Aaron Gordon, it's already not a great matchup for Denver, but without Aaron Gordon specifically, it makes it really difficult to overcome the Timberwolves' size. But, I keep going back to something I've been talking about all year, KJ, and I know you and I have had discussions about this. I keep going back to it because I do think it's a very important point.
Mm-hmm.
The ending of last season against these Timberwolves, after the game and in the end of season press conference here at Ball Arena, everybody was talking about, did Michael Malone run this team into the ground?
Yeah.
And I've been saying all year, and Malone was asked that question, and he sat there and thought about it for a second. And I'm kind of summarizing his answer here, but it was basically like, I may have, and that's something I'm really going to have to think about over the summer. That was essentially what his answer was. So I've been talking about all year, is Coach Malone going to show everybody that he learned a valuable lesson with the way last year ended? Right now, with the amount of minutes these guys are playing, Nikola Jokic has a bad elbow, a bad ankle, and
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Like, there was the story, the second night of the back-to-back in Oklahoma City, Malone told Joker, "Hey man, probably be a pretty good game to sit out," and his response was, "Hell no." But at the end of the day, and I love that from Joker. I mean, I
I do.
absolutely love it.
I do too.
But at the end of the day, you're the head coach. You have to make those decisions. Even if Joker tells you, hell no, sometimes you got to be like, sorry, buddy, but you're sitting tonight. Now, is that the reason they lost tonight? No. But I'm going to be watching very closely how Michael Malone manages these guys' minutes the last month of the regular season. I think that's extremely important. I've said this all year. The Nuggets are still in the 2 seed right now, I believe. And if they can get the 2 seed, great. Okay. But if they fall down to the 4 or 5 seed by resting guys and getting them ready for the playoffs, wouldn't you rather have that be the case than grinding them into the ground like they did last year to try to get the 2 seed?
No, I am with you 1,000%, Dan. Malone has to know that at the end of the day, it's no longer about seeding for this team. It's
No.
about health. Health has to be the number one priority right now.
Mm-hmm.
And at times it feels like he's confusing the two. And I want you to, Dan, let me know what you think about this. So the OKC game on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
Nuggets are down, give or take, I want to say, what was it, like 3? And he brings Nikola back super early, right? And I'm like, okay, no problem.
What was the game where Joker started the fourth quarter? Was that the first game in Oklahoma City? I can't remember.
I
Like,
want to say, yes, I think it
I
was
mean,
that game.
continue, but it's like, man, when I saw that, I was like, what are we doing here?
Exactly. And then he does the same thing tonight. So what is
Yep.
supposed to be a momentum, a carriage of momentum is now becoming a panic move. And I'm like, don't panic. Don't panic. Like, if the bench can't hold steady for 3.5 minutes of game time to get Nikola like 10 minutes of rest in real time, then I don't know what else to tell you. And that's all you're asking the bench to do. I know Julian Strawther's not there, but Jalen
Playing well.
Pickett's playing really, really well. I feel confident in what Christian Brown can do and what Jamal Murray can do when they stagger with the bench. I feel confident in it. Malone apparently doesn't when it's crunch time. And so I'm just like, don't panic, man. And so that goes back to what you were saying, Dan. Like, if the minutes continue to tick up and it's not ticking up to win, it's ticking up out of panic because he's scared of losing this everlasting feeling of being dominant. I'm like, it's no longer about being dominant in the regular season, dude. And if what is this, year 9, year 10 for Coach Malone? If you haven't gotten that now, I don't know when you'll ever get it. Because the truth of the matter is you're an NBA champion, and that championship run should have solidified in the Nuggets' mind that it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
So why are we still sprinting?
Yep. I mean, Joker, he didn't play the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. The starters get yanked. Still played 38 minutes tonight. That's too much. And I'm not trying to go too hard on Coach Malone here because I have also said that I do have a shred of grace and sympathy for him because let's be honest, the Nuggets bench is not that great. Okay,
No.
they aren't. Do I think they're good enough for Coach Malone to play them a couple extra minutes a night and hopefully tread water? I think they can do that. But that is the one kind of like other side of the coin I'll play. I kind of get it. Like Malone's stuck between a rock and a hard place in a way. But at the end of the day, KJ, they're in the 2 seed right now. Who gives a crap if they fall to the 5 seed by resting these guys? And
Exactly.
by the way, resting these guys doesn't necessarily have to mean, well, they've got to take a night off here. They've got to take a night off there. Stop playing them 42 minutes a game. How about we just start there?
It's that simple.
How about we try to get it down to like 36 minutes, and then maybe you go to 34 minutes, and then maybe you stop it at 32 minutes. Like there are other ways to do this. So I'm going to be very curious this last month of the season to see how Malone manages this team's minutes. And by this team, I mean mainly Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon when he's in there, Jamal Murray, Michael. I think Christian's still young enough in his career where I don't think that affects him as much.
No, I agree.
But it's going to be interesting. All right, KJ, before we get your final thoughts, let's hear from Michael Malone, who just spoke to the media down in the post-game area.
Michael, is the problem with this team more matchup, or at this point is it mental and approach?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. Game 1, I went down to the wire. Had our chances in that one. Obviously, game 2, that game got away from us in that third quarter, kind of like tonight. I think maybe 9 minutes to go in the third quarter, we cut it to 5. And then after that, nothing went our way. So I'm not really sure the reasons why, Matt. Probably a little bit of all the above. I know the last 2 games we did not have Aaron Gordon, and I think against a team with that kind of size and physicality, having Aaron would definitely help, but that's no excuse. Probably the craziest stat of the night, we didn't play much defense all night long. They had 115 points. They shot 48 from the field. They shot 43 from 3. They had 29 second chance points. I mean, on 12 offense rebound, that's a crazy stat. And we only had 11, so that's an 18-point differential. Now that can't happen. So, and the 3-point line, they outscored us by 30 points from the 3-point line. So we did a poor job of defending it, giving them 17, and we really struggled to make shots tonight to give them and their defense credit.
If you haven't had too many games like this, does that make it a little easier? I know no loss is ever fun, but this isn't a trend, but more of an outlier.
Yeah, I mean, since I think December 8th, we have the 3rd best record in the league. I mean, we're going into tonight, we're 14-4 in the last 18. But that doesn't make getting your ass kicked fun. I mean, I know you weren't insinuating that. I felt that we were really tired tonight. And I don't know if that back-to-back in OKC and the emotions of that, everything we put into that, I just felt that we were a step slow. And that's understandable. Like, that's what I was telling myself is that, I mean, you look at what I've been asking, especially our main players as of late, that's a lot. And so we just got to find a way to get them as much rest heading into this upcoming back-to-back against LA and Washington. But they're a good team. They came in there, handled their business. We got to learn from it and try to be better come Friday night.
Okay, well, that's a good place to stop right there, KJ, because that's exactly what we were just talking about. I mean, I like that Malone at least is aware of this. Okay, that's at least a little comforting to me for him to say that. Now, the key is, are you going to follow through with that? Like,
No.
that's what we're talking about here. You don't think so?
No, he can't help himself, dude. The body of work speaks for itself. He can't help himself. As much as he wants to convince himself, okay, we need to rest, the truth of the matter is he sees his team is down by, we'll call it 10, and it's 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And instead of, he know he'll get crushed by the national media if he waits 1 second longer to get Nikola back in there. So he's like, all right, you know what? I'll just go ahead and just throw Nikola in right now instead of just letting Jamal Murray see if he can figure it out with that second unit. And so it's like, dude, I hear you. I just, man, if you can prove me wrong in these last 20 games, come playoff time, KJ will bow down and I will be quiet and I will trust the Malone way. But until he changes his ways, man, I just got to go based on what I know.
Scott always tells the story of the scorpion and the frog. Have you heard the story of the scorpion and the frog?
Oh, guys, if it's from Scott, no, I haven't.
It actually is very, it pertains to our conversation here. So, it's a story of a scorpion and a frog. They've got to cross a creek or a river or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And the scorpion says to the frog, hey, do you mind if I get a ride on your back over to the other side of the river? You'd really help me out. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. You'll sting me. He's like, the scorpion says, well, why would I do that? Then we both go down, right?
Mm.
The frog says, so they get halfway across the river and the scorpion stings the frog. And he's like, why did you do that? We're both going to go down and drown. Because it's in the scorpion's nature. He can't help himself.
That is actually a good analogy. That's a good analogy.
He can't. It's in his nature. He can't help himself. You're right, man. Like, there is nothing that I or you have seen that we could sit here and say, well, we'll give Coach Malone the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he will start to reduce specifically Nikola Jokic's minutes and the other starters. I'll believe it when I see it, man. I'm with you. Like, yep. But I always go back to that press conference at the end of last year. He's aware. Like, that's what's weird about this, KJ. He knows he's doing it. He knows. He's not blind to it. He knows he's doing it, but he's still playing these guys way too many minutes because it's it's in his nature. And I think that's really kind of what it comes down to. Yeah. Maybe he'll surprise us. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know. We'll see. And look, let me also address this other thing he said in the press conference there. I get it. Guys can be tired. I understand it's been a little bit of a stretch here for the Nuggets. But the only reason that my heart is not feeling a level of grace that Malone is expressing right now is because when you looked at this schedule after the All-Star break, you knew it was going to be tough, right? Oh, yeah. And so if you knew coming out of the All-Star break it was going to be tough, well, then you got to have your mindset built every night that it's a playoff game. From a competitive standpoint, this is separate from Malone and how many minutes he's playing the starters. I'm talking about the players specifically. They have to understand without the shadow of a doubt that it is all about my mindset and me treating every game from here on out like a playoff game. And the Nuggets players overall, man, they are still struggling to find that consistency in regards to just being able to play at that level at all times. I can tolerate a loss when you're giving me maximum effort. I can't tolerate a loss when you are playing a part in your own death.
Yeah. Do you think part of that is like these dudes are just, we talk about like the physical grind and the physical toll that the season takes, especially when you're playing as many minutes as these guys are. But I think this is kind of what you're saying, but like, is there a mental toll that, an off day can help with? Like, do you think reducing minutes or sitting out Jokic for a game or two here and there can help not just the physical aspect of what we're talking about, but the mental aspect, sort of a mental reset? Do you think that is what this team needs just as much as the physical rest of the body?
I think so. Because I think there's like this level of like teetering right now. Like there's this like we're 60 plus games into the season and we're still walking on eggshells. And it's like there should be no need for that. So
What do you mean walking on eggshells? What do you mean?
well, from the perspective of like night to night, the bench still doesn't know who's going to play. They still don't know how
Yeah.
many minutes they're going to get.
Mm.
And so, again, going back to the minutes thing, it's as much as I would like to believe that Malone understands the value of pacing, that it is a marathon, not a sprint, as we just talked about. I think he kind of struggles with reminding himself that it is a marathon. And so to answer your question, Dan, like, yes, I do believe that from a longevity perspective, a game of rest for a couple of starters here and there wouldn't hurt at all. But Malone also understands you can't afford to concede any games right now because you have not locked up a specific seed. And there's a part of him that's like, if we still have a chance to get that, that second seed, why not go for it? That's just in his nature. That's just who he is. So I think unless something changes here, I think we're going to run into the same situation we ran into last year. And I hate that for the Nuggets.
Yeah, you're right. Unless something changes, it's going to be interesting. And again, it will. I mean, look at the last year in the playoffs. It was funny, KJ, about the first round where they beat the Lakers 4-1. They did not dominate that series. That series was much closer than the final series tally made it out to be.
Right.
You could kind of feel it coming in round 2 that this team was just fried mentally and physically.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the same feeling I got tonight. And I haven't felt that really at all throughout this regular season. I know there's been some peaks and valleys this year, no doubt. It's also been harder to tell just because this team has been a lot more injured this year. Again, if I'm going to put up my positivity cap on, the one benefit, hopefully, of Aaron Gordon missing so many games in the regular season is that he hasn't been out there for 25 plus games now so far this year. So if they can get him right, I'm in the camp of just sit Aaron Gordon until the playoffs. Don't even play him. Just sit him until the playoffs. What's the point?
Yeah.
Why play Aaron Gordon until the playoffs? Again, it goes back to like, are you trying your damnedest to get the 2 seed, or are you okay falling to the 5 or 6 seed? Now, you want to avoid the play-in, I get that. But I mean, the standings right now, KJ, the Grizzlies and the Nuggets are tied at 42 and 24. Technically, the Grizzlies have the tiebreaker, so they are technically right now back into the 2 seed. Then you've got the Nuggets. Then you've got the Lakers in the 4 seed, Rockets in the 5 seed, Warriors in the 6 seed. Let's say they fall to 5 or 6. But they also rest these guys significantly down the stretch. Or they get the 2 seed, but Jokic is playing 40 plus minutes a night. What would make you feel more comfortable going into the playoffs?
I mean, look, the truth of the matter is, give me the 5 or 6 seed, and Jokic is a little bit more rested. AG is rested. Jamal, his minutes are slowly ticking down as you put a little bit more on Jalen Pickett. At that point, it's not about. I wouldn't say it's necessarily about how much you win. I think it's more so about are you in position to go as far as you can. So I'm all about the 5, 6. Yeah, let's stick with the 6. I was about to say to play in, but I was like, nah, never mind. Let's not flirt around with that.
Screw that. I don't want these guys don't need to be playing extra games, KJ.
No, you're absolutely right. I was like, you know what? I don't know what I'm thinking.
5 or 6 seed. I've been saying that all year, right? We've been talking about this all year.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, like last thing on this, the Jokic thing on the second night of the back-to-back in Oklahoma City, telling Coach Malone, hell no, I'm not sitting. Mm-hmm. I love that. I do. But again, at the end of the day, man, like he's the head coach.
Yep.
The players don't tell you when they're playing. You tell them when they're playing.
I agree, man. But again, we're running into that unique situation where, if I'm being honest, Dan, there was a stretch where coaches couldn't tell LeBron James anything. And I think we have put Nikola.
I don't think that's the same situation.
Maybe not at the same pedestal, but I do think we are dealing with a situation where we've given Nikola so much liberty that I think for the sake of not trying to push back too much against Nikola, it tends to lean more so towards, okay, Nikola, versus Nikola, I love you enough to say it's not happening today. And this is my final decision.
Nikola's had one head coach in his career. LeBron has one head coach every 2 seasons. KJ, let's not compare those two. I get what you're saying. But LeBron is not only the king on the court; he's the king of getting his head coaches fired. Okay, let's be honest. But my point is, I don't think if Coach Malone were to put his foot down and say, "Listen, man, like I love that. I hear you. I know you want to play, but you're not playing tonight." And that's final, kind of like a strict parent. I don't think Nikola would. I think he would push back a little, but I don't think he would push back to the point where it would cause friction between Michael Malone and Nikola Jokic. I don't think that's the same as the dynamics of LeBron and his head coaches.
Right.
LeBron, 100%. You tell LeBron he's not playing, good luck on the unemployment line, because that's where you're going to be very soon. I don't think that's the same thing here. And I just hope Malone really shows us something that we're both not expecting to see, KJ. That's all. And I'm with you, man. You have good reason to doubt it, and so does everybody else. I get it. But who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe he will continue pondering about this, and maybe we'll see Coach Malone really change his stripes and not run these guys into the ground. We'll see.
We will see. Speaking of that, Dan, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, they're coming to Ball Arena on Friday.
Ooh, how pumped are you for that? Well, LeBron's not going to be playing, unfortunately.
Well, Shams reported today that LeBron is joining them on the road trip.
Oh, did he? Okay. I had heard that LeBron will be out for that game, but who knows? I mean, I could be wrong.
We'll see. They're basing it on how he's going to feel tomorrow night when they warm up in Milwaukee, because the Lakers will come to Denver off a back-to-back.
Well, Shams posted this at 4:12 p.m. Lakers LeBron James has returned to Los Angeles per medical recommendation as he continues to progress well from a groin strain with the team, finishing the road trip Thursday in Milwaukee and Friday in Denver, league sources tell ESPN.
Okay.
So it sounds like he's not going to play.
That was after his original report. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So that'll be a they're not going to do this because it's the Lakers, and I'm assuming it's a national TV game. No LeBron, that'd be a damn good game to rest some of these guys.
It would be, and then Luka goes off for 85, and now he's passed Kobe for second most all time in scoring in NBA history. So there's that.
KJ, you're the best, man. Appreciate you jumping on, and this is going to be a fun little. We're both of us. Everyone listening, I'm going to be looking at that box score and those minutes played, and I cannot wait to see how this goes, man. It's going to be entertaining. At minimum, it's going to be entertaining to watch to see how this plays out. So, KJ, you're the best, man. Appreciate you jumping on.
I appreciate you having me, Dan.
All right, there he goes, our guy KJ Granderson. I love KJ. We've been going back and forth about this minute stuff all season long, and it's something I really believe in. So, all right, before we get out of here, we've got one more person to hear from. Nikola Jokic just got done speaking to the media. Be interested and curious to hear if he mentions anything about the team being tired. Does he mention anything about his interaction with Malone in Oklahoma City? Not demanding, saying he's playing. Let's hear from Nugget star Nikola Jokic.
Nikola, this is obviously a very physical matchup, a very charged matchup between these two teams. What did they do maybe on the defensive end against you guys that kind of bothered you?
I mean, they're into the ball. They know what they want, what they're trying to do in off screens, in pick and rolls, and post ups, and then they're really aggressive, and they have personnel for that, and they're a good team.
There aren't a whole lot of teams that beat you guys a few times in a row. They've won 5 straight now, going back to the playoff series.
Yeah.
Obviously, different rosters, but are there any trends that you kind of see through this stretch of games?
All the 5 they beat us pretty easy. So we need to be better. We need to do a better job. I don't know what, but it seems like we are not playing good against them, or maybe they don't let us play good against them.
What type of dynamic does Julius Randle add to what they do?
He's leading them in the last I don't know how many games in assists, so he's really going downhill, looking for matchups, looking for mismatches, and I think now they're kind of they're figuring out. I think in the beginning they were kind of didn't know what to do. I think right now they're like doing a much better job, and everybody's kind of know where to do, what to do, and where to be on his drives or whatever.
Nikola, is it easy because you haven't had too many losses like this? It's more of an outlier, not a pattern. Easier to stomach a loss like this, knowing that you guys have played so well consistently throughout the year.
I mean, I don't know. I want to win every game, so if I lose, I don't think any loss is really easy for the stomach. So yeah, it's when someone beats you so many times in a row, it's something that you need to figure out. You need to think about it.
Do you think you guys were emotionally and physically exhausted after the Oklahoma City series?
No, I don't think so. We had a day off, so we shouldn't be.
Coach Malone wasn't bothered by.
Okay, so that's kind of what I was looking for there. Good job, DMAC. They're asking that question. Did he think this team was mentally and physically exhausted after the back-to-back in Oklahoma City? Joker says he doesn't think so. I'll take his word for it, I guess. But it damn sure looks like this team is. That's I can only tell you what my eyes see and my ears hear, and it just looks like this team is at sort of a crossroads in the season as far as, are they just going to go for this thing, or do they really need to scale back the minutes for mostly Nikola Jokic, but also for Jamal and Michael and maybe a little bit of Christian. I don't think it's as important for CB just because he's on the younger side. Yeah, we'll see. But hey, really appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Tough loss for the Nuggets. We'll be back on Friday for a huge matchup between Luka Doncic, the LeBron James-less LA Lakers, and your Denver Nuggets here at Ball Arena. It should be a rocking atmosphere in here. It does kind of suck that LeBron's not playing. That always adds to the intensity of the matchups between the Nuggets and the Lakers, but it's going to be a great game nonetheless. So, and I'll be curious to see what Coach Malone does as far as if he sits anybody in that game, considering LeBron is not playing. I let me look this up here just real quick. I want to see if this is a national TV game, because it's on NBA TV, but it's not TNT or ESPN. So technically it's a national TV game, but it's on NBA TV. So my point is the league would not be super happy with either team if they were to rest a lot of their star players in these matchups. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this, everybody, but the Utah Jazz got fined $100,000 for repeated did not plays for Lauri Markkanen. So the NBA fined the Jazz $100,000 for violating player participation policy. The NBA is really cracking down on the star players as they define it under their policy because he was an all-star in 2023. Now, the team says it's for injury management on his lower back, but shortly after the fine was announced, the team said Markkanen would play Wednesday night against the Grizzlies. So, yeah, we'll see. And by the way, another violation. The first one was $100K. The second one goes up to $250. So the NBA is not messing around with these star players as far as rest goes. But look, the Nuggets won't have any problem there because Nikola Jokic is obviously dealing with the elbow injury and the ankle injury. So they don't have any. They're not going to have any repercussions if they sit Nikola Jokic for a game or two here or there. But we'll see what happens. Hey, great stuff tonight, everybody. Really appreciate you participating. And we'll see you on Friday. This has been In the Paint on Altitude Sports Radio.